A financial AI output is not yet a financial action. A score is not a decision, a classification is not a restriction, a recommendation is not an instruction, a signal is not a trigger. Each of these can be useful, and each can be wrong. But the governance question in finance does not open at the output. It opens at the moment the output is allowed to enter the workflow as an executable step. The general distinction, that the boundary is where a process starts doing, not where it thinks, is the subject of the concept essay in this series. This case applies it to one domain. Financial AI produces many outputs that look decisive. It may classify a transaction as suspicious, score a customer's risk, detect a market anomaly, flag a possible fraud, classify a custody position as elevated risk, or summarize a supervisory file. Each output matters. None of them is yet a financial action. A suspicious activity score is not yet a regulatory action. A credit risk signal is not yet a denial. A liquidity warning is not yet a trade. A fraud alert is not yet an account restriction. A custody risk classification is not yet a withdrawal hold. A supervisory finding is not yet a change to a regulated institution's operating path. Between the financial output and the financial consequence, a boundary opens. That boundary is where governance has to ask a narrower question: is this action still eligible to proceed under the current authority, the current state, the current conditions, and the current operating environment? A financial signal becomes executable when the workflow lets it act. A classification can route a case. A score can escalate a review. A flag can block a customer. A recommendation can release a payment. A finding can change what is reported. At that point the signal is no longer being read, it is doing something. This is where financial AI governance lives, not at the model that produced the signal, and not at the approval that was once recorded, but at the step where the signal is allowed to move financial work forward. The model may be accurate and the approval may be real. Neither proves that the action is still eligible at the moment the workflow acts on it. This boundary matters because the financial present rarely stands still between output and execution. Authority may have changed. The account state may have moved. The customer context may have shifted. A risk condition may have expired, a market condition changed, a policy exception lapsed, a required review been skipped, a prior unresolved state left open. An AI-mediated workflow can produce, route, rank, and escalate at machine speed. The faster the signal travels, the more easily it can act on a situation that has already moved, continuing as if the moment of output and the moment of execution were the same. They are not the same. In finance, explanation is not only about whether a model can describe itself. It is about whether a specific action can be justified at the moment it was allowed to proceed. A firm may need to justify a decision to a customer. A supervisor may need to reconstruct why an action was permitted. An auditor may need to trace what was known when the workflow moved. A board may need to know whether controls were actually operating, not only documented. A general explanation of model behavior does not answer these. They are decision-specific, and they are tied to the moment the signal became an action. In an AI-mediated financial workflow, the final action may be taken by one institution, but the path to it is shaped by many hands: the model provider, the vendor controlling updates, the workflow designer who decides which outputs trigger action, the team that sets thresholds, the reviewer who approves a result without seeing the full state. Responsibility does not dissolve into that distribution. It follows the executable path. The question is not only who took the final action, but whose control shaped the step where the signal was allowed to act. There is a larger question this case does not address. When many institutions rely on similar models, vendors, or automated controls, their behavior can begin to move together. That is a market-level and supervisory concern with its own structure. It is real, but it is not what this case is about. This reading stays at one boundary, the moment a single financial signal becomes executable inside a single workflow. Financial AI will classify, score, summarize, flag, and recommend across compliance, credit, trading, custody, fraud, and supervision. Some of those outputs will stay advisory. Some will enter the workflow and act. The governance question is the same in every case. Was the action still eligible to proceed at the moment the signal became executable, under the current authority, the current state, the current conditions, and the current operating environment? A financial signal is not yet a financial action. It becomes one when the workflow lets it act. That moment, where a signal turns into a consequence, and the consequence opens only if the present still supports it, is the execution boundary. It is the boundary foresight oversight is built to govern.